Okay, let's jump right into it because we're talking about a massive shift here. How we power the entire world with sources that, well, literally never run out.
Exactly. When we say renewable energy, that's what we mean. We're getting it from natural things like sunlight, the wind, moving water, sources that just keep on going, no matter how much we use them.
And for the last, what, century and a half, we've basically been living in the carbon era. The whole world running on fossil fuels, so coal, oil, and natural gas.
And that era changed everything. I mean, coal gave us the steam engines for the Industrial Revolution. Then oil and gas, they let us build modern cities, cars, planes.
But that came with a cost. Not just the money to find it, but the environmental cost.
Yeah.
All the smoke and the waste.
Right. So the mission now is kind of twofold. We need sources that will last forever, and we need to clean things up. We're looking for power that's available everywhere, not just buried underground in a few places.
Which means the technology has to be incredible.
Oh, it is. Every day, these systems are getting more efficient, and this is the most important part, much, much cheaper.
Okay, so let's start with the one that really changed the game economically.
Yeah.
Solar power. We're talking about taking sunlight and turning it right into electricity. What's actually happening inside those dark panels you see on rooftops?
So the key is the photovoltaic cell.
Oh,
It's usually made of silicon, and when sunlight hits this material, it excites the electrons and makes them flow, and that flow is a direct electrical current. That's the basic science.
but you said the real story isn't the science, it's the economics. What do you mean by that?
Well, just a decade ago, solar was way too expensive for most people.
Sure.
Today, the cost has dropped by over 85% in a lot of places.
Wow.
That huge price drop is why solar went from, powering a pocket calculator to powering entire cities.
That makes total sense. The goal isn't just to make it work, it's to make it affordable for everyone. And we see them everywhere now. Huge solar farms, panels on people's houses. Oh, and they do work on cloudy days, right? Just
Yeah.
not as well.
Absolutely less effective, but they still produce power. And we measure that power in watts and kilowatts. The goal now is to find materials even cheaper than silicon, like perovskite cells, to drive that cost down even more for you.
Okay, so from the sun, let's look at the air. Wind power. Those huge turbines you see on tall towers, catching the strongest winds way up high.
Yeah, this is all about converting motion into electricity. So the wind spins those huge blades, which turns a shaft inside. That shaft is connected to a generator.
And the generator is what makes the power.
Exactly. It turns that spinning motion into electricity that goes right onto the power grid.
You see these wind farms in big, flat, open areas, or now more and more way out in the ocean.
And they're so effective. A single large turbine can power hundreds of homes for a whole year. And here's a key thing. It uses zero water to operate, and it produces no toxic waste. But we really have to talk about onshore versus offshore wind.
Okay, what's the big difference there?
Offshore, out in the ocean, the winds are just so much stronger and more consistent, so you can build these enormous turbines. I mean, some are taller than skyscrapers, and they generate a massive amount of power.
But it must be way harder to build and maintain them out there.
Oh, it's a huge challenge. The cost is higher, maintenance is tougher, and you have to run these long, long cables under the ocean to get the power back to land. The engineering is way more complex, but the payoff is huge.
So we've got sun and wind. They're amazing, but they're intermittent, right?
Yeah.
They only work when the sun's out or the wind's blowing. Which brings us to a more reliable source, hydropower, the power of moving water.
Hydropower is, it's really the foundation of renewable energy. People use water wheels for centuries. Today, we channel water from rivers or dams through massive pipes.
And that spins a turbine.
Exactly. A turbine spins at incredibly high speeds and generates a ton of electricity. It's actually the largest source of renewable electricity in the whole world right now.
Because it's so reliable, you can control the water flow. So big plants can provide what they call baseload power.
Right. That's the steady, constant power that big cities and factories need 24/7. But there's a really important distinction to make here.
What's that?
While the big dams we already have are super valuable, building new ones is really controversial. They can have a huge impact on the environment, on fish, on communities.
So what's the alternative then?
The focus has shifted. Now we're looking at smaller run-of-river systems that don't need a huge dam. And what's really exciting, systems that use the rise and fall of ocean tides.
Tidal power.
Yeah, and that's amazing because it's 100% predictable for years and years in advance.
That's incredible. Okay, so we've done sun, wind, and water on the surface. What about the power that's right under our feet? Let's talk about geothermal energy.
Geothermal is basically just heat from inside the earth. We're tapping into the planet's natural boiler. Engineers drill wells, sometimes miles deep, to reach pockets of natural steam or super hot water.
And then they use that steam to do what?
They pipe it up to the surface, and that high-pressure steam spins turbines in a power plant, just like with hydropower.
The big advantage here has to be reliability.
It is. Geothermal is on 2047, no matter the weather. It's another great source of that stable baseload power that keeps the whole grid from crashing.
I know countries like Iceland, which sits on a volcanic hotspot, get almost all their power this way. It's clean, constant, and it doesn't take up a lot of space on the surface.
Precisely. The only downside is you have to be in the right geographic spot. It's not something you can build just anywhere.
Got it. Okay, our last source is a bit different. Biomass energy. This comes from burning organic stuff, right? Like wood, plants, even waste.
Yeah, all that organic material has stored energy in it from the sun. So when you process it or burn it, you release that energy as heat. You can use it to make electricity or convert it into liquid biofuels for cars or even gas for heating.
So you can turn waste into energy. Farms do this, right? With animal waste.
They do. They create something called biogas. It saves them a lot of money and deals with a waste problem at the same time.
It sounds like a perfect loop. But is it really carbon neutral? I hear that debated a lot.
That is the big debate. The idea is, yes, burning it releases carbon, but as new plants grow, they absorb that same amount of carbon back out of the air, so it balances out.
Oh, good.
But there's a time lag. If you cut down a big forest for wood pellets, it might take decades for new trees to grow back and absorb all that carbon. So in the short term, it's adding CO2 to the atmosphere.
That's a really important point. It's not as simple as it sounds.
No, but biomass is very flexible. It reduces what goes into landfills, and you can store it and use it whenever you need it. Think about heating a hospital in the middle of a winter storm.
That ability to store it and use it on demand, that brings us to what might be the single biggest challenge for this whole transition.
Storage, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the big problem, right? The sun goes down, the wind stops flowing.
Yeah,
How do you keep the lights on?
exactly. We have to be able to separate when we make the energy from when we use it. Right now, when it's sunny and windy, we often make more power than we need. We need a way to save that extra power for later, like at 7 p.m. when everyone gets home and turns everything on.
So batteries, is that the main answer? Big, giant batteries.
That's the fastest growing solution for sure. We're building these huge facilities full of lithium-ion batteries, basically just like the one in your phone, but scaled up to store power for a few hours.
And that helps with the evening rush.
It's perfect for that, but those batteries are best for short duration storage.
Short duration. So what's the next problem?
Long duration storage. What if you have a whole week of cloudy, calm weather? You need something that can store power for days or even weeks. And lithium-ion batteries get really, really expensive when you try to do that.
So what else is there? What are the alternatives for that long-term problem?
Well, one proven method is pumped storage hydropower.
How does that work?
When you have extra cheap electricity, you use it to pump water from a low reservoir up to a high one. It's like charging a battery. Then, when you need power, you let the water flow back down through a turbine.
So it's a giant water-based battery.
Exactly. It's very efficient, but you need the right kind of terrain to build it.
Are there any other ideas, maybe more experimental ones?
Oh yeah, lots. Some are looking at compressing air in huge underground caverns. You use extra power to pump air in, then release it to spin a turbine later. And the big one people are excited about is hydrogen.
Using electricity to make hydrogen gas.
Right. You split water into hydrogen and oxygen. You can store that hydrogen for as long as you want and then use it later in a fuel cell or burn it to make electricity again. If we can make that cheap enough, it could solve the storage problem completely.
Wow. So better storage is really the key to finally moving away from fossil fuels for good.
It's the absolute key. As storage gets cheaper, the whole argument for fossil fuels gets weaker every single day.
So let's connect this back to you, the listener. What does all of this actually mean for our health and for our jobs?
Let's start with health. The biggest and most immediate benefit is cleaner air. Renewables don't pump out mercury or lead or sulfur dioxide like a coal plant does.
Which means fewer people go into the hospital for things like asthma. It also means cleaner water because you don't have pollution from mining or oil spills.
And of course, you're tackling climate change by cutting greenhouse gases. We're basically learning how to work with nature instead of against it.
And what about the economy? This transition creates a ton of new jobs, right?
Millions of them. We're going to need people to design solar farms, Specialized technicians to maintain those giant offshore wind turbines, electricians who understand how to connect all these new sources to the grid?
And it makes countries more secure. If you're using your own sun and wind, you don't have to buy expensive oil from other places.
Exactly. That money stays in the local economy. It can go to schools, to parks, to making things better right where you live. Learning about these technologies now is basically getting ready for the jobs of the future.
Of course, it's not all easy. There are still some pretty big hurdles to get over.
For sure. The biggest one is probably the upfront cost. Building a huge wind farm is really expensive at the start, even if the wind is free forever.
And some people worry about how they look, seeing turbines on a beautiful ridgeline, or the impact they might have on local birds.
Those are valid concerns and they need really careful planning. But maybe the biggest technical problem is the grid itself. Our electric grid is 100 years old. It was built for a few big power plants sending electricity out in one direction.
But now we have power coming in from everywhere, from rooftops, from community solar farms.
It's like trying to run a modern internet on old telephone wires. The whole system needs a massive upgrade to handle power flowing in two directions. A smart grid.
And then there's just location. The best spots for wind and sun are often way out in the middle of nowhere, far from the cities that need the power.
Right, and building the massive power lines to connect them is expensive and can take years to get approved.
So, wrapping this all up, the direction is clear. The carbon era is ending, mainly because new technology is making clean energy cheaper and safer than the old stuff.
The future isn't going to be one single source. It's going to be a smart mix of all these things: solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, all connected by a modern grid and supported by powerful energy storage.
The students listening right now are going to be the ones who design, build, and manage this new energy economy. You'll be guaranteeing a cleaner planet and an energy supply that will last forever. Good luck with your studies.